Great. You ready, Dan?
I am ready. Good morning, everyone. Dan Bates, President and CEO of Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. We are really happy you could join us today. We have a really interesting topic from Steve Whayne at Miami University, and we're going to be introducing him in just a little bit. We are on Facebook Live, so if you're on Facebook Live with us and want to ask a question, type it in and Tiffany will repeat it. Those of you who are on Zoom with us, you can either raise your hand or just ask the question of the presenter while Steve's doing his presentation. So with that, you know who I am. We're going to find out who all of you are. So Laura.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Laura Merrill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber. Glad to have you with us today. Let's go around and tell me who you are and what company you're with. Chris, we will start with you.
I'm Chris Cannell, and I'm with the Hamilton City Schools.
All right. Kathy.
I am Kathy Ellman, and I'm with Spooky Nook Sports.
Wonderful. And Sarah, glad to have you with us.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hickman. I'm the owner of Sarah Hickman Designs. We're a t-shirt company.
And Tiffany.
I am Tiffany Grubb, Director of Membership and Marketing at the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right. Glad to have you all with us today. Steve, we will let you take it away.
Well, I think we should introduce him first before Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Dan,
okay, yes.
Tell us who Steve is.
Steve, just a minute. We've learned a lot of interesting things about Steve when he agreed to do this presentation. So I had no idea that he attended University of Berkeley in California and that he has his MBA from marketing from Michigan State University and that he worked at Procter & Gamble for over 20 years. So all those things we didn't know. He worked for a marketing research firm in Blue Ash for several years. And he's always been very involved in helping high school students and college students achieve their goals. So that's what he is doing now. And he's excited to continue doing that, helping Miami students at Miami Regionals. He lives in Westchester with his wife. And when he has time, he has two daughters too. When he has time, he enjoys golfing and has been to where golfing originated in Scotland twice to play. So with that, Steve, it's yours.
All right. Thanks for having me. Let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen now. Let's see here. Give this a whirl. Give me a second here. And we'll see how it goes. And you guys let me know when you can hopefully see my screen.
We can see it.
Yep.
All right, awesome. All right, so the topic today, show me the money, career advancement in a post-COVID world. And I do not claim to have all the answers here, but I'll walk you through a few slides and we can have a discussion. And a lot of this you're gonna know, but I think it's still good to kind of hear it, you know, maybe get some points reinforced, and then of course, pave your own way as well. But this was a deck that I put together for you today, and we'll go ahead and get started. Here at Miami Regionals, we have, I like to think of it as a small but mighty staff. There's basically 4 of us representing our 3 regional campuses in Hamilton, Middletown, and Westchester. So we have Doug Reichenberger as our director, Linda Vogt is our program associate. I'm the assistant director of employer relations, and Denny Doherty is our newest addition to the team. He's the assistant director for career development. Denny and I work mostly out of the Middletown office just because there happens to be more space currently in Middletown. Doug and Linda typically work out of the Hamilton office, which is very convenient for them because they both live in Hamilton. So that worked out quite well. And just real quick, our mission, I think you all know this, but in career services, we are here to help students and alumni through all of their career and professional development needs, coaching students through career planning, teaching job search skills, helping them connect with local employers for internships and full-time jobs, and eventually achieving their career goals. So everybody knows what this is, right? COVID, lovely COVID. Let's go back a couple of years, and I like to think of it this way. Everything changed in March of 20. We can all probably remember what we were doing when this happened, right? But I thought I'd just throw a couple of facts at you here. So on March 1st, 2 years ago, the U.S. reported their second death in Washington state, 2 deaths. First cases in Rhode Island, Florida, and New York showed up in March of 20. By the end of March, New York's death toll exceeded 1,000, which we all thought, of course, was horrific. But now let's go up 2 years and we're at 900,000 deaths in the US, 5.7 million deaths globally. Pretty mind-boggling. So I looked up a few things. McKinsey and Company had some interesting findings here. And again, like I said, a lot of this is not going to be surprising to you, but remote work obviously accelerated. So many people had to go remote, work out of their house, e-commerce, automation, all of that, 25% more workers than previously estimated needing to switch occupations. Looking forward, and who knows when this pandemic is going to finally leave us, if ever, but remote work and virtual meetings are likely to continue, maybe a little less intensely than at the peak, but I think that really the work styles of everyone, companies and individuals, has changed, right? I mean, companies have learned to adapt or are learning to adapt, individuals as well. So it's been a real mind shift, I think, for everyone here. Again, not surprisingly, we're going to see more and more adoption of automation, artificial intelligence. Anything with high physical proximity is going to have, there's going to be some impacts. And we'll talk about some of these points in a minute. But I kind of broke it down a couple of different ways. No matter what's going on in the world, there's still some basic principles that remain if we're thinking about, again, the title, kind of think of it as post-COVID success, right? So these sort of things are still gonna work in your favor. I don't know a lot about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but I thought this was a pretty interesting quote. Be humble, be hungry, and always be the hardest worker in the room. I mean, right there, that'll take you a long way. So those ideas have been around for a long time, and I don't think they're going anywhere. Here's another interesting slide. I found this on LinkedIn. You guys may have seen this as well on LinkedIn, but I thought this was interesting. I have this actually posted in my office. And I like to, share with students when they come in too, just to reinforce some of these things. All of these things require zero talent, but look at all of these great things that you can do. Just basics, be on time, make an effort, high energy. You can read through these. These are all great things to just try and model your behavior and try and do these things. And even before you get into the, higher intelligence part of your job, this is going to set you apart from so many people right out of the starting gate. Dan talked about my background, and it's, I guess the point here is, your career path. And again, I reinforce this with students. Your career path is probably not going to be a straight line, right? You like to think of it as a nice linear progression, but that rarely happens to most of us. There may be a few of us that it did, but I think for most of us, it looks more like the, arrow on the right, right? Hopefully it's, a slight upward trend, but there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. And I try to, impart that to my students when they come in and talk to me. And I just use myself here as an example. I mean, I was all over the board. Freshman year, I was an engineering major. You know why I was an engineering major? This was how much thought I put into it. I looked at the starting salaries and I saw engineers made a lot of money. So I said, you know what? I think I'll be an engineer. That was about all I thought about it. I had to take anthropology as a basic requirement, and I loved that class. So that got me thinking, maybe engineering isn't for me. I really wasn't too crazy about calculus and physics and all of those engineering classes. So the anthropology class kind of planted a seed in my head freshman year. So then sophomore year, I looked at English as a major, and I actually ended up majoring in economics. So right there, I was all over the place in my first 2 years of college. Got my bachelor's degree in economics and went into banking for 7 years. Well, that makes sense with an economics degree. I happened to have been held up twice when I was working in the bank. This was in Michigan at the time. So that was an interesting experience. And I'll tell you guys about it some more, maybe some other time. Then I went back to graduate school. I got an MBA in marketing, and then went into market research at Procter & Gamble. And it just kind of worked out that the economics degree and the marketing degree was a really nice mix of 2 degrees for market research. So that kind of worked out well. While I was at P&G, I did a lot of college recruiting for them, would travel to campuses. I was kind of that first interview on campus, if you will, for the students. And I really just kind of liked the university atmosphere. Really enjoyed my trips when I would go off to campus for a couple of days and do interviews. So when I saw this opening at Miami, I decided, you know what, if I like doing that so much, maybe that's what I should give it a try. So here I am now on the staff at Miami. So you can see I've been all over the board. This is another interesting slide. Some of you may have seen this before. And again, I try to reinforce this with the students that I meet with. You know, you don't have to have it all figured out at the age of 20. Look at some of these people, which I think most would consider are pretty highly successful, right? And just look at how they all kind of took a while to figure out what they wanted to do in life. I mean, Mark Cuban is the youngest one on here, you know, and at age 25, he was still a bartender. All the way to the other end where you have, you know, Ray Kroc. Until the age of 52, he sold paper cups and milkshake mixers. And of course, he ended up founding McDonald's later. So, and then if you look at the net worth of these 12 people, $120 billion in net worth. So they all did pretty well, even though they didn't necessarily start at 22 as soon as they graduated college. So you need to kind of figure out what you want to do. So let's think a little bit again about COVID, post-COVID, if there ever will be a post-COVID. How can I thrive in this environment? You know, what do I need to do to adapt? What changes do I need to think about making? So again, I kind of talked about this a little bit at the beginning. There is no magic bullet, unfortunately. There's not some magic formula that we can all just use and take off. There's so many different company cultures and personalities and individual, right? You yourself, you need to, kind of, I call it curate your own strategy. It's great. I guess this is my market research background. Talk to a few people, do your research, get some good ideas from various people, but then you need to kind of bring it back to you and blend it into your own life and figure out how it's going to work best for you. So those are my caveats going forward. So do you want to get promoted? I get this a little bit with the students, maybe more from the alums, but these are just some tips that I found again from Amanda Augustine from Top Resume in New York. Just some good, sensible things here. If you're not already doing it, create a little brag book, keep track of your accomplishments. Because when it comes time to make the case for that promotion, if you have a kind of a written record of what you've been doing, this also comes in very handy for annual review time. Just keep track of your accomplishments throughout the year. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Literally just a little logbook is all you need. Write it down. And then it's much easier when you have to look back and say, what did I do in the past year or two? Talk about challenges that you faced and overcame. Putting a little bit of detail into some of those things can really help you in those talks with your manager about career progression. And, talk to your manager about your future goals and achievements. Even if the promotion isn't right there in front of you, it's always good to just have kind of a open conversation with your manager about kind of where you want to be and maybe what you want to do in, a couple of years out. What if you want to change careers? And we get this with our students as far as changing majors, or if they're getting, recently graduated and they're thinking about changing careers. So again, just do a little bit of Googling, look at some trade publications, maybe join some industry groups, some associations. LinkedIn makes this so easy now. You can join various groups and just start receiving information about that particular sector or industry that you're interested in. It'll help you understand what's going on in that area and also talk more intelligently about it if you're having a conversation with someone in that industry or sector. Take a look at your resume, make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date. make sure your skills are up to date, and you might even have to do a little bit of reframing to kind of make sure that the skills in the industry that you're interested in are coming out on your resume. A little bit more on changing careers. Any past connection or brush with that industry that you had should be included on your resume or your LinkedIn profile, just to help that strengthen that link or that connection, right? And it could even be volunteer work. And also networking is so important. And this is where, you know, the Chamber of Commerce can be so helpful. Make some human connections in that industry or sector that you're interested in joining. That'll make the transition so much easier. And, you know, if you meet some folks, they might even be able to help advocate for you when it comes time to make that big switch. Thriving after COVID, what are some skills that you need? I touched on some of these, I think, earlier. Again, not surprisingly, right? The digital environment is going to be so important. Everyone, and I think a lot of us are doing this now, but you're certainly going to have a degree of technological skill. You know, basic digital skills will obviously help you work with others, but it'll really, you know, begin to set you apart in terms of how you've adapted, what you're doing. Look at some of the things here at the bottom: data visualization, machine learning, advanced analytics. Any of that kind of stuff is going to become more and more important as we go forward. You don't have to be an expert in that, but at least be familiar with those areas so you can, you know, carry on a conversation and talk to people about it if it comes up in conversation. Cognitive skills, another area that is going to be really important here post-COVID and really in COVID. Enhanced problem-solving skills, creativity, innovation. Think about remote work. We have to be able to demonstrate these skills, you know, when we're, you know, working out of our house. You need to show these kind of things even more importantly than before. Here's an example, you know, what skills would a procurement officer who's now working remotely now need to help her company relocate production and rethink the supply chain? Social and emotional skills, another area that I think is going to be highlighted even more importantly here in the COVID world. Collaboration becomes very important, self-expression, to maintain your strong professional ties, even though you're probably working remotely. You're going to need advanced communication and interpersonal skills. Empathy is going to become, and already is becoming, more and more important. You need to be able to kind of bridge that distance gap and still break through, collaborate with people on different levels, you know, again, socially, emotionally. Those relationships are usually easier to do in person, so you're going to have to try even harder to make sure it's happening in a remote work environment. And of course, adaptability and resilience. And we've all, I think, learned to do this in the past 2 years, but it's going to continue to be an area of importance. Again, self-awareness, self-confidence, self-reliance, time management, mental wellness, another area that has really been brought to the forefront in the past 2 years. Like I said at the beginning, we've all had to make big changes in the way we work and interact with people. These are all areas that are going to continue to be very important. Another thing I like to tell our students here at Miami, but you can use it as well in your own life. Micro-credentialing or certifications can be a great way to kind of set yourself apart and put that on your LinkedIn profile, put it on your resume. Again, it shows that you've adapted in this post-COVID world. You're figuring out new ways to improve yourself. So just in summary, you know, like I said, there's kind of two parts here. Some of these at the top of the page are quote unquote the newer areas that have really come to the forefront. But the ones on the bottom have always been there. And I like to think of it as a combination of these skills are really what's going to set you apart. Hustle and hard work, stay hungry, be coachable. Those are always going to be important no matter what. But look at the ones on top. We talked about these, right? The digital world, creativity, problem solving, persuasion, collaboration, and being adaptable. Those are obviously of increased importance here in the COVID world. And that's basically it. Now that you're armed with these skills, the future should appear brighter for you. And there's my email, and I will stop sharing and see if we have any questions. All right, are we back?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I always have a question. You know, obviously the workforce has changed. What you just covered, some of the skills required in the workforce has changed. One of the challenges that I see is employers haven't changed so much. So, in my perception, and I don't know if you can confirm or deny this, there seems to be a gap between what the workforce is now looking for and expecting. And, employers kind of tried to go back to business as usual, and they're still looking for somebody to fill a job that has expertise in all the things that the job requires, as opposed to looking for somebody who is flexible and able to learn and all that. Are you seeing that in your work?
Absolutely. No, you're spot on, Dan. I mean, the way I think about that is many of these employers, it's kind of like turning the Titanic around. It's just not going to happen overnight. And, they're used to the way it's always been. And we want to go back to the way it was. And we're resistant to change. And yeah, definitely. Now, some companies have become much more nimble and have done a much better job of kind of turning that ship around. Others, like you said, have the blinders on and are just trying to just plow through the ice. And I'm not sure it's working for them. As a job seeker, what I would just say is, well, choose your poison, right? I mean, do you want to work for a company like that or not? Maybe if that's not a good fit with your, personality and the way you're doing it, well, maybe you would be better off in another place. And of course, that's easier said than done, but certainly something to think about. It's kind of eye-opening the way these, companies have reacted. Some, great, others not so much, and not always dependent on size of the company either. Some of the larger companies, I think, have done a great job, and some of the ones out in California, have all these big buildings, and they're just like, yeah, you know what, we're going to go remote now forever. We just built a new headquarters, and we're not even going to use it now. That was pretty bold, to have a couple of companies out west do that. But I think they realized the world has changed, and we have to change with it.
I think the other thing that goes along with that is, one thing that when in talking to a lot of the leadership from employers here in Hamilton, many agree that culture is, a key piece in finding the right talent. But once again, their idea of culture and the culture that the new worker is looking for is not necessarily in alignment. So I'm not quite sure what we do about this. I mean, we've been talking to our members now for even before COVID about, looking for skill sets and things like that. And, skill sets are whether or not somebody is flexible and has the ability to learn new skills and all of that. To the employer, if you look at the job posting, the skill sets are, can you, connect this machine with that machine? Well, that's not a skill set,
Yeah. Yeah, I would just say too, in my role here in employer relations, I mean, we all know this, but the job market is so hot right now. I mean, I have so many, I've heard of so many job opportunities. So many companies are desperate for help. I guess the term is it's a buyer's market right now for job seekers and students. I mean, I don't have enough students to fill all the jobs that I know about now. And students are becoming more and more picky. And I'm sure the general job market is the same way. You have a lot more options now. It won't always be like this probably, but right now the pendulum is definitely in that direction. And I mean, every day I come in and I hear from, a new employer who, needs to hire people. Hey, Yvette.
Steve, I have a question. I know you mentioned resumes, but in this market, what is the most important information to kind of have on your resume? Have you seen changes in how information employers want to see versus the standard kind of resume form that we were all taught to have?
Yeah, that almost kind of gets back to Dan's point. It's almost like the company that you're interested in joining, how are they doing? Are they staying traditional? Then perhaps a more traditional looking resume might go better with them. If you're looking at more of a startup, leading edge kind of company, yeah, then you probably want to put some things in your resume that I talked about in my PowerPoint, some of these new skills that are becoming more and more important, throw in some certifications that you did on LinkedIn or, micro credentials, show some ways that you've really, what year is it right now, Laura? 2022. We were talking about that earlier. Make sure that you show your resume as being up to date as of 2022 and, some of the newest, greatest things that are going on in the world, and make sure you have that. So it really kind of gets back to knowing your audience. And yeah, some of the companies that maybe are not there yet, you probably do want to keep your resume a little bit more traditional. But what we've been, just to give you guys an idea, what we've been telling our students here is still keep it fairly, I guess, traditional looking in terms of you have a work experience section, you have an education section, you have a skills section. So you still want some of those basic things on your resume, but you never know. I mean, I talked about when I was in banking for a few years. When I interviewed at the bank, I had all this stuff on my resume, which I thought was awesome. We talked about the very bottom line where I said my hobbies were golf and running. The guy that interviewed me happened to be a runner. So 2/3 of the interview, we talked about what races we had been in or whatever, And so you just never know what's going to, strike someone on the resume, but keep a lot of the traditional things in there. But if it is maybe a smaller, kind of newer, more modern company, throw in some of that, some of the newer skills that you've learned that we talked about in the PowerPoint.
Steve, I have a question, but it's not really, this is a yes or no question.
Okay.
A couple of your slides I thought were excellent. And I think, Tiffany, we should look at pulling those out and putting those on our e-newsletter. The one was the information you got from LinkedIn, like the the basics that,
Yeah.
And there was another one, I forget what it was now, but there were two offhand that I think if you would be willing to pull those and send them to Tiffany, with your logo and all that type of thing, we could even put, pulled from a recent presentation by.
Sure.
I think that's really good. There both of them were bullet points. That'd be great to, I think, put on our e-newsletter. Don't you think, Tiffany?
Yeah, I think the one was it takes 0 talent for the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I sent Laura the deck, but yeah, I can send you the deck too, Tiffany. Not a problem.
I have a question if I could ask. Actually, sorry, it's not for you, Steve.
That's
I got,
all right.
I got a quick question while I can take this opportunity. Question for Kathy. What is your capacity at Spooky Nook?
I'm sorry, it took me a second to find the unmute button. What kind of capacity, like square footage or sleeping rooms, or What specifically?
No, I mean, what is your job? I've been trying to get a hold of.
Capacity. Oh,
I've
see, I'm
been
so
trying to get a hold of Caleb.
Of people. You said capacity, and I immediately went to classroom setup. So sorry. I'm actually the director of sales there.
Director of sales. Okay. I'm just trying to get a hold of Caleb. I sent out a job interest form to these high school students.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Caleb had said at one point that you would be hiring as low as 14-year-olds. And
Yes,
I've had an overwhelming response, over 100 kids that are looking for jobs, and they're inquiring on how do we apply for Spooky Nook?
Right. I don't know where we are. I know we're not applying. We're not hiring people right this second. I know it's close, but we're not doing it yet. Caleb is the right contact. He's our director of corporate HR. So he is the one that actually is leading that whole program. So you said you reached out to him. Has he responded to you?
Not yet. I used to have conversations with him, went out for coffee with him, but lately I have not been able to get any response yet. I looked at the website and I didn't see anything on there for that low of a entry level.
Yeah, it's not ready yet to be rolled out, and I don't want to make excuses, but as you can imagine, he's like a one-armed paper hanger with opening a new,
oh, absolutely,
square foot facility. So
no,
I will say on his behalf, because I think I know him well enough, that he is not ignoring you on purpose. He's not sending a message. I'm sure he just physically can't get to it yet because there are other fires. So I will, if you'd like to send me an email, I can forward it to him.
Oh, that's all right. I just, I'm same way. I've met with him a few times. He's a really super nice guy. I don't think he's ignoring me or anything, but I just wanted to know if you knew any inside information or anything.
I wish I did. I do not.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Steve?
I have one. I always have another question. Just, Steve, your background has taken many turns. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you were sitting down with maybe a young person just starting their career, starting to interview and that type of thing, what would you say to them was the single most important thing you've learned in your career?
Oh boy. Single most important thing. I don't know. I think this is probably pretty broad, but I would say be true to yourself. Like I said at the beginning of my presentation, I was so silly when I was 17 years old and decided to be an engineering major. It took all of, 30 seconds. I looked at the starting salaries and said, engineers make a lot of money. I guess I'll do that. Did I think about that? Would I like that type of work? No, I didn't even think about that. I took my basic math classes and science classes in high school, and that was the extent of my thought process. I was just looking at the starting salary, which of course was the totally wrong way to do it. And so I didn't last long in engineering, did I? I mean, as soon as I got to college and took anthropology, I was like, wow, I like this class so much better than calculus and physics. Maybe I should do this. So I just think that the overall, lesson there is be true to yourself. And, whether you're making whatever, 64,000 a year instead of 62,000 a year, it's not going to be that big of a difference. It's like, do what's going to really motivate you to get up and go to work every day. And yeah, you have to survive. You have to make enough money to survive. But beyond that, you're going to have to enjoy what you do. And, you don't want to have, what do they call it? The Sunday night blues where you're sitting there going, oh, I got to go to work tomorrow. I don't have that at all now. It's like, I don't even, totally just, I love this, And so that's, I think, what you just have to find, and you may find it right away, or it may take you a while, but that would be my, I guess, word of wisdom, if you want to call it that.
And Dan, I think you should share what you think would be your answer to that question.
There you go.
I have been asked that actually, and mine is always maintain your sense of humor and be able to laugh at yourself.
Yeah, there you go.
It's gotten me out of a lot of difficult situations that were not funny at the time, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to me, you have to really enjoy what you do, and I think that will end up turning into pay raises and promotions, right? Because if you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to probably do your best work, and then you're going to get rewarded for that more than likely. So,
yeah, it's no fun having a job that you hate.
Right.
I was in a job once in retail on the East Coast, and my boss was so terrible that I would start throwing up on Sunday nights to go to work on Monday.
Oh man.
So
yeah.
Good news is I outlasted her, but anyway.
Hey, and I would like to say, even though I was held up twice at the bank, that's where I met my future wife. So it was all worth it. And we're celebrating 30 years in May.
It's very important to love what you do. I know that firsthand. So.
Awesome. Well, Steve, thank you. I think this is some amazing information, and Tiffany and I will definitely be putting some of this back out in some different forms. Next coffee and conversation is Tuesday, the 22nd. Dan, would you like to share about our speaker for that day?
I would love to. First of all, I just want to say to everybody, I love what I do. So I've been very fortunate after that one experience. Everything I've done, I've enjoyed, but nothing as much as I've enjoyed being here in Hamilton. We have a great presentation for you coming up later in the month, and it's going to be a combination of players. There's going to be an update on the workforce initiative that is happening here in Hamilton, headed up by Jean Pope, HR director for the city of Hamilton. And I know Chris Cannell is part of that. I'm part of that. And so is Shamana Curtis from Miami University. There's also going to be a new initiative that is going to be started with Kettering Health here in Hamilton. And two people are going to be joining the call on that are really pushing forward what the future workforce looks like for Kettering Health. So we're really excited about that. And there'll be other partnerships that we'll be talking about. But there is a whole workforce initiative that has been in place in Hamilton. It started with the CHIPS program for young people of color to get connected to career opportunities and building relationships. And this is kind of the next phase of that. But we're really excited about this partnership with Kettering Health, and probably looking to hire 150 people this next year right here in Hamilton. So stay tuned.
That sounds awesome. And Steve, I'll let you give a little plug for your job opportunity fairs coming up.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we have a couple of career fairs coming up. March 3rd is a all majors in-person fair on our Middletown campus. And March 4th is a virtual healthcare career and internship fairs geared specifically towards those students seeking jobs and internships in the healthcare industry, which of course is in high demand right now. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So if any employers, if anyone wants to contact you, how's the best way to contact you, Steve?
My email is probably the most efficient way. I can also be reached through phone, which is 513-217-4036, 217-4036.
That's awesome. Thank you, Steve. I love this presentation. A lot of great information here, a lot of takeaways that people can act on to use in the future. So we will see you all in a couple of weeks on February 22nd.
Thanks for joining
everybody.
us.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.